Hey, this is Brenda Meller from the Enthusiastically Self-Employed podcast. I joined the Download Growth Club last year when I first launched my podcast. And my favorite part about being a Download Growth Club member is having access to an expert, to Adam, because Adam has been there, done that. And he gives you great ideas all the time, ways to improve your podcast, to improve the marketability, to grow your podcast listeners over time. And I have to admit, I haven't done all the homework that Adam recommends, but whenever I do the work that he suggests, I see the results firsthand. So if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about making the investment in the Download Growth Club, I have to say it is an investment that will definitely get you the ROI that you're looking for.
Pod Pals, if you want some of my best podcasting tips, make sure you're subscribed to my free Podcasting Business School newsletter. Every Thursday, I sit down and write a fresh newsletter in real time without the use of any AI. And here's the best part. My newsletter topic is completely different from my podcasting topic each week. So if you want to join the 4,000 plus podcasters that are reading my Podcasting Business School newsletter each week, head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school or just hit the link in the show notes. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you're listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help you make more money, get more clients, and build a profitable online business. And today we are doing our monthly live coaching episode. We've got a double dose of amazing live coaching, if I do say so myself. And we are splitting it up. In the first segment, I'm bringing on one of my newly certified podcast growth coaches. Coach Kim Parkinson is going to take the lead and dish out some podcast growth tips that you're really going to enjoy. And if you guys are kind of newer to the ecosystem, I run this certification program to help people in the coaching space within podcasting to level up their growth skills. And Kim graduated that program. And as part of that, she gets to come on the show and lead a podcast coaching episode session. So that's what we're going to start it off with, a little bit of growth tips there. Then I'm going to take over the second segment at about the 30-minute mark. I'll put a timestamp in the show notes for you all. And I'm going to do a podcast audit where I talk about expert positioning, content and client conversion with your content. And we discuss my client conversion pathway a little bit, even some rebranding ideas. So a lot of value in this episode. I love doing the live coaching. I love showing off my certified podcast growth coaches. So let's kick it off there with Coach Kim dishing out some podcast growth tips.
Hey there, Pod Pals. I'm Kim Parkinson, podcast growth coach, producer, and host of Podcasting for Spiritual Women, a show that helps priestesses, light healers, and other soul-led entrepreneurs amplify their voice, grow their audience, and attract aligned clients through their podcast. Thanks so much, Adam, for letting me take over this podcast growth call today. I am chatting with Kim Charlson, host of Vessel and Voice, a channeled podcast that's just getting started. Hello, everyone. I have Kim here, and we are going to go over her podcast audit. So, Kim, if you could tell us a little bit about your podcast and your podcast name, that'd be great.
Yeah, my podcast is named Vessel and Voice, and it's a podcast that's channeled, which means that I go into a semi-conscious trance state and allow my spirit guide Monty to speak through me. And then I also share the human perspective of different spiritual concepts and energetic concepts and help people go along their path of spiritual growth through the podcast.
Fantastic. Excellent. And how long have you been doing this podcast for?
It's very new. We just launched it at the very end of February. So I believe we're on episode 13 this week right now.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. Awesome. So what is your goal, your 90-day, 6-month goal for the podcast? What are you looking for?
I'd really like to get up to having, between 500 and 700 listeners per episode, because that's what my peers in the space about where they're at of folks that I know and that have been podcasting for a while, obviously, but that we're in kind of a similar space and have a similar audience. So that's my goal, is to get to there. And I'd love to do that in 6 months. I don't know if that's possible, but I know it's inevitable, just a matter of the right strategy and timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you also tell me, other than releasing weekly, are you also doing any kind of online promotion of this at all?
I promote it every week to my audience, both on my newsletter, which has, just about 120 subscribers. So it's very small of a list. And then I cut clips from every episode and share those on social media. And the reach that those get are about 130 views on average on Instagram. And it's probably the same people that also see it in stories because that audience is very small. And then on TikTok, they get usually between 700 to 1,000 views over there. So they're doing fairly well. TikTok seems to work a lot better for the space that I'm in versus Instagram. So that's the ways that I'm promoting it. And then I have done one guest appearance on a friend's podcast that worked really, really well. So I'm planning on doing more of those. She has just under 1,000 listeners, or right about there. And that was really great. After that went live, my listeners for that week went up. I think it was 120 people listened to that week's episode. And then I got 5 conversions out of it for services. So that was really productive for me. And for full context, I do own a digital marketing agency that specializes in SEO and Google Ads. So I do have that background as well.
Okay, great. Excellent. So, when you are doing the SEO for your podcast, have you thought about that specifically, especially in your name? Your name is Vessel and Voice, correct?
Yes. And I haven't found, in terms of like the SEO that's out there, not a lot of people seem to be searching specifically in traditional SEO tools. And I don't know a lot about podcast SEO, which is different. But in the traditional tools, the clients that I'm getting, they're just searching for channeling sessions
Mhm.
specifically. And I haven't done a lot of topical research for specific episodes yet. And as for the title of the podcast, I wasn't sure if like adding something to amend it, of having Vessel and Voice, like a channel podcast or something like that would be a good idea. I don't know if people are searching for that. I haven't done any research on it yet.
Yeah, I actually did do a little bit of research on that, and I definitely suggest that you could add a tagline or a little bit onto your podcast name. I actually looked up channeling, and there were a
Hmm.
lot of different podcasts out there with the word channeling on there. And then a couple of other keywords you might want to consider is maybe like spiritual growth or energy alignment, soul expansion, just really hone in on those key phrases and those keywords that you're using in some of your episodes and maybe bring that into your tagline or right into your podcast name itself. So it depends on your hosting platform if it allows that tagline. And also, you could add it to your name as well. So I know your name is on there as the host, but if
Hmm.
you just add channeling guide to the end of your name, there's another opportunity for those to be searched in Apple, Spotify, and all the other podcast players.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use Kajabi to host my show, which I know is not the most advanced, but it was what it was easiest for me. So I don't know if it has that capability or not. So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't have the capability of the tagline, you can certainly use like a colon and you don't even have to change your podcast cover art. You could just put it into the title on your host on Kajabi and don't have to change your intro or anything like that. This is just
Okay,
for searchability, which is really nice.
gotcha.
Yeah. And then another place that I would love to take a look at is also your podcast description. Now, I did read it over as well, and I think that we could probably stuff a ton more keywords and key phrases into it. It is quite short. I'm not sure on the podcast on the count that Kajabi will give you. I have been in the back of Kajabi for podcasting before, and I'm thinking that because it's a paid feature, you could still add a lot more to it.
I think
So
so. Yeah.
I think you could definitely get in there several more keywords and key phrases that specifically talk about what you are doing and who you are speaking to, because that's important to know your audience and the actual audience that you're speaking to there.
Gotcha. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have a limit within Kajabi as far as it's just not showing anything. So I think I could really make that a lot
Yeah.
more keyworded there.
Excellent. And I also, since you know a lot of SEO in regards to Google and Bing and all of the other searchable areas there, if you think about maybe 5 to 10 different questions that somebody would Google to come up with your podcast, like if you Googled channeling sessions, would your podcast pop up? Put those questions, create those questions, and then put those questions in your description as well, just to get a little bit more of exactly those questions that people are asking for in Google.
Can you give an example of what you think would be one question that people might be searching?
Yeah. So if somebody is searching for a channeling session with Monty, for instance, because I know your channeling guide is Monty,
Mhm.
if they are searching for that because they're like, I remember this person, but all I remember is Monty. Who is it? If you put that in your description, then that's going to pop up pretty quickly in any kind of search engine because specifically channeling guide with Monty, that's very specific and it really gives you right directly to your podcast. But you need to put that in the description so that that description can have, and you can ask a couple of different questions in there. And then you can even add those and use those as your podcast names, the episode titles in the
Episode
future as
titles.
well.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So how SEO for podcasting works is it crawls your name first and then it crawls your description. And then the third one is your title. So if you want to make sure that your titles are really keyword rich as well, I know that you've done some of that. I've seen some of your titles as well. So just make sure that those are as really, poignant as you can get them to be in words. So yeah.
Do you recommend going back and revising old titles and updating the RSS feed?
Yeah, you don't have to update the RSS feed specifically because that's with the host, but you can
Mhm.
absolutely go ahead and update and revise those titles. And the reasoning is anyone new that's coming to you, they're never going to know that you had another title before. And those people that have already listened, you're talking, would you say about 25 people on average here? You would much rather get another 400 people listening than worry about the 25. So
That makes sense.
absolutely. Yeah, go do that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also noticed it doesn't look like you have your podcast numbered. Is that correct? Is that in Apple not numbered? Is that what I
It
saw?
should be numbered.
Maybe because I wasn't following. Sometimes if they're not following, it's not in that number.
Yeah,
So
let me double check because each one is numbered. I am posting it because it is also video, which I've had the hardest time with getting Spotify to accept the video. I think it may be that the files are too big, maybe. But those are the numbers after the title on YouTube, since YouTube SEO, it functions a little bit differently, but those also have the number on them. But it's the number first and then the title was the format that I was using.
Perfect. That's exactly correct. That way it's just easier for people to find it. You could say, please go back to episode 4 and listen to that episode. Just makes it so much easier. So excellent. In your podcast show notes, I noticed that you have a lot of different links to send them to. Now, where do you really want them to go to?
It kind of depends. I have 2 different audiences. I have people that want to learn how to connect with their spirit guides and to channel. Because I do have a channeling class that I teach. And then I also have a group coaching program that I launch once to twice a year. So those people, the best place for them to go is to the spirit guide meditation. And then the people that don't want to learn and just want to have a channeling session, most of the time they just want to go and book a session directly. So I do have 2 different defined audiences within the segment. And a lot of times the people who want to learn don't want a channeling session. And the people who want a channeling session have no desire to learn. So there's definitely 2 groups there.
Okay. So if you were to think about doing a podcast strategy over the summer, say, and you wanted to just send them to just those 2 rather than to all the other different links that you had, would you be open to just putting those links in? I'm just not to confuse your audience, but basically to really direct them onto those paths. And maybe even write something above that that just says something about, if you're interested in a session, this is the link. If you're interested in learning more, this is the link, and leaving it just as that, so that they're really nailed in on those specific pieces for that
Gotcha.
particular.
Okay. Makes sense.
Another piece I wanted to ask you about is, after people join your newsletter or after people buy anything for you, do you have any kind of link to your podcast after that?
No, I don't, because I have not. I'm in the process of updating right now my funnel for people that come in that go to the free meditation. So it's a series of 5 emails that goes through and introduces them to some of like the common issues that people have with it and different solutions along the way. But that needs to be updated because my product suite has changed since I did that, because that was last spring when I made that. No, 2 falls ago was when I made that. So it just needs to be updated. So that's on my roster for June of something that I've got. So do you think like calling out the podcast in the very first email that goes out is a good idea, or?
Absolutely. I just joined your list today, and I did look, and there wasn't a link to your podcast anywhere. And I thought, that's just an opportunity for you to just get that additional listener. And it doesn't even have to be anything big. It could be a PS at the end, even. It's just something to anybody that's joining your list should always know immediately where they're going, where you can find your podcast.
Yeah.
Yep. And even in the thank you page, I noticed that the one on your footer, when I linked there, it just went to a page that said, go to previous page. But if you had the opportunity, you could say, listen to the podcast here. And it would be just one more way of people being able to see you and just connect the dots there. And it's an easy click, right? Once they're already there, they've already clicked on one thing. Why not click on the other? So another
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So you have a couple of different offers. Which one are you looking to fill this summer? Which one are you really looking to look at?
The most that I want to fill is my membership, because it's recurring revenue and it's the least time intensive for me. So there's 2 tiers for that. One is $15 a month, and they gain access to a bunch of channel material that's already in the directory that's sorted by topic. And then a weekly message from Monty that he guides them through like a specific exercise to do that week or a different activity. And then it also has a community. It has so few members in it right now that people aren't really yet engaging in the community aspect. So I'd really like to increase that. And then the $45 a month tier also includes a live group channeling session where they can submit questions to be answered and get the full replay of that it's from beginning to end in one segment and contains some channel stuff that's not in the directory in that. And then they also have one energy activation that is also channeled every month. There's those 2 group events that occur, and then they get the replays.
Great. Now, you mentioned that sometimes people ask you questions. Have you ever turned those into a coaching episode?
I have a couple of episodes that are coming out soon from listener questions. 2 more or the next episode actually is a listener question. So I'm trying to keep that the podcast has listener questions that people submit, and that the live channeling sessions, people ask a different kind of question in those. They're often very personal, very deep questions, whereas the podcasts are more conceptual questions like, how does the soul grow if it doesn't change, is what the episode that's coming out is, versus the questions that are in the group sessions. They're things like, I'm looking for a new job and I'm really struggling with it. What should I do? Sort of thing. And then the questions that are in private coaching sessions, which would be our private channeling sessions, those are kept private. We don't publish them at all.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think the first 2 really give you an opportunity to shine and show people what and how your podcasting style is, or your coaching style is in that particular case. So I feel like those would be really great episodes for people to listen to. So I'm glad you have a couple on the deck there ready to go.
Yeah. And we also do TikTok lives as often as we can, usually like once every couple of weeks. So we're adding those into the directory. And I've thought about taking some of those, depending on the questions that we get on TikTok lives, and putting them into the podcast as well. Those are a little harder because we get a lot of questions like, I really like this significant other. Are they thinking about me? Questions that are not very helpful. So
Sure. So your podcast comes out on a Thursday. Do you
Yes.
plan on doing your TikTok live immediately thereafter, or when is your scheduled time right now for that?
We don't have one. It's usually on a Friday because that seems to be a good day for when we get a lot of engagement because people on a Friday are not really paying attention during work hours quite as much at work.
I hear that. I hear that. Sure, for sure. Okay, so I think that's a great, actually, a great time because that is in a great 72-hour window of the podcast. So any kind of really a nice little punch to send people to your podcast would be within that 72 hours, and a TikTok live right after that would be great. A couple of other opportunities there would be maybe to send out a newsletter immediately thereafter, and
Okay.
maybe even a carousel post on, 3 things that Monty channeled this week, or 3 things that happened during my live coaching session this week for Instagram. If you're up for some carousels, that is.
So you've said 72 hours. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, you really want anybody to come in for those first 72 hours, are really the ones where the episode is really still fresh. It's still in your mind fresh. And it's really one of those things where if you can get people to really listen in those, sometimes Apple and a couple of the other podcast players will initiate more listeners if you've gotten quite a few downloads in that in a short amount of time. So yeah,
Okay.
send them there. Send them there and
Yeah,
get
because
them.
my email cadence right now is, I send my newsletter on Tuesdays, so it's quite a ways after I publish because Tuesdays are a good day for email, and Thursdays looked like a good day to publish podcasts. So, with that, would you recommend that I change my newsletter to be the same day that I publish my podcast?
You can do that, absolutely. Or you could send out an additional one with just the podcast information in it if you wanted,
Yeah,
if
I
that
don't want to
wasn't too
send more
much.
than one a week. Yeah,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it's too much for me. And I think it's just too much for my audience. The spiritual space does not send as many emails, I think, as other
absolutely.
industries. So,
Yeah, I totally get that. I work with a lot of different priestesses and light healers, and absolutely, they just the one time a week is seems to be a good cadence for them. So I totally get that. Absolutely. Then I would suggest that if you're sending them out on Tuesday, then maybe you could either move your podcast to Tuesday or maybe move your newsletter to Thursday. Either way. Yeah. Give it a go for a couple of months and see how it goes. That's the best way to gauge how anything is doing in your podcast. Change just a couple of things and see how that works for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And then you'll know whether or not you're on the right track when you see a couple more downloads happen and you see that growth happen too. So super important. Then there's some other opportunities. You could get some podcast advertisement. I know you do
yeah.
Google ads, but there's other.
That was my next question. I had a call with ACAST yesterday about using their advertising platform. Are there any specific platforms for advertising that you'd recommend? ACAST doesn't have a lot in the spiritual space. They only have, it looked like 5 for pre-recorded ads, and I haven't looked at post-read ads yet, but it looked like no more than about 15 in that space.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you could do some banner ads on Overcast FM. And then another one that is more Android based is Podcast Addict. And both of those give you the opportunity to purchase ads and ad space. And they actually both will have like an idea of how many new listeners that you can expect. So could be worth it if you pay attention to the numbers.
Okay. And then do you recommend doing a lot of podcast guesting? Because that's part of the strategy that I've developed for myself so far, because I'm pretty well connected to a lot of podcast hosts in the spiritual space, and they have significantly more listeners than me. It seems to convert pretty well, but it is very time consuming. So I don't know if that's like a recommendation or if you have other options that you recommend more.
If you want to grow, it certainly is a great idea to do some podcast guesting. And, you could either bulk do them, just batch them a couple at a time, or you could do maybe one a week or whatever you feel comfortable with, because I know it can be time consuming to do it. But it's the easiest way to get additional listeners to your platform. One, maybe you could pod swap with them. And two, they're an easy listen. If they're already listening to their podcast, it's so quick and easy to borrow them and get them to jump over to your podcast, right? So it's an easy way to move those listeners over.
Gotcha. Do you recommend doing it? Like, I've seen that doing a solo non-interview podcast, which also suits like the unique kind of way that I'm podcasting, because it's very different since it's me and my spirit guide. Do you recommend for like doing pod swaps of having like an interview style or something else?
That is actually going to be up to you. So you might actually find somebody in your community is able to pod swap with you, and you could actually really present that as a coaching opportunity. Whereas maybe they have a couple of questions and you're maintaining your authority there by coaching them with that. But then you are then on their podcast, and then you're showcasing what you have to do on there. But I wouldn't have too many guests. I would definitely try to maintain that authority that you have, and maybe only do one guest a month, or maybe even one every 6 weeks or so, just so that people get to know you, get to see your coaching style, get to see how you do things. And really, it's ultimately going to be about you, not about the person that you're interviewing.
So no more than one time per month or every 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely vary, but I feel like if you are having too many guests on, what ends up happening is you're basically just allowing them to do a lot of the talking, and then people just get to know them and not really you. And the goal of your podcast is for people to get to know you, get into your funnel, buy from you, and and then be a great listener and a great customer all the way around. So
Yeah, and I could see that we do it as like they come on and we do a channeling session for them, and
yeah.
then be on their podcast talking about channeling in general and what that's like.
Yeah, I love it. So I really appreciate you coming on today and being here. Is there any other questions that you have for me today?
No, I think we covered everything that I had questions about right now.
All right. Thanks to Coach Kim for stepping into the coaching seat for that first segment. If you guys want to connect with Coach Kim, I will put her information in the show notes, as well as the podcast growth coach certification. Maybe running another one of those group cohorts here at the end of the year if there's enough interest. So if you have interest in that, check out the link in the show notes, and you can get a little bit more info. All right. This next segment, I'm diving in with a podcast audit of the Grace in the Grind podcast. We're going to dive in and talk about content and developing expert positioning with your content, and also creating a client conversion pathway. So really good stuff in this one. And we ended up working with Jim after this episode. He ended up joining my online business academy, and we did a full rebrand. He's had great results since. So this is kind of cool to look back on this conversation where it all started. So let's dive into this podcast audit session, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, Pod Pals, we're here for another podcast audit coaching session with my Pod Pal, Jim, from the Grace in the Grind podcast. Jim, welcome to Podcasting Business School.
Well, thanks for having me on today.
All right, let's hit the ground running. Let's set a goal to see if we have something that we can work towards here today in the next half hour or so. So let's say we're sitting down 6 months from today. We've got some traction. We've got some momentum with your show. What could that potentially look like for us?
So when you're saying what can it potentially look like, I think in 6 months, I would love for my show to be monetized. I would love for my show to be having a regular number of downloads. I think that would be the thing. I'm on the newer, lower side, so I want to increase that, and more engagements.
Okay. Now define monetize. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? How are we making money?
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to make money. And so like whether it be selling my own coaching or selling a course or something like that. I considered sponsors, but I'm not 100% sure I want to go that route yet. But at least I have my own stuff I want to put up there.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend starting there with selling your own programs, products, and services. That's going to lead to an earlier path of monetization and a more lucrative path. Like you can sell affiliate codes and stuff like that and make a little bit of like, cherry on top of the sundae type of money, but selling a coaching package, a consulting package, a group coaching program, a membership, a paid challenge, things like that, you're going to be able to make more money and make it earlier on in your podcasting journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
All right. So what do you feel like is the roadblock that we need to assess today? What's keeping you from hitting, especially your growth goals right now?
So I don't know if the podcast is 100%, defined well enough to know what people understand what it does. I want to be able, part of it is just a complete 100% interview show. I'd love to be able to start doing solo shows. I even thought about doing a separate show for solo shows kind of thing. So it's kind of like when I started it, it was like, all right, let's just sit down and have great conversations. Because I love great conversations. I wanted a podcast. It took me 6 years to get one. That's what I started with. So 6 months later, I'm at the place of reevaluating and wondering, okay, what's the next stage of this podcast? And should I, break off a little bit to have like a solo to actually speak to an audience?
Yeah. Okay. Let's start there. A huge recommendation that I put forth to all my listeners, my clients, everybody that I'm working with is that if you want to sell your own programs and services, we need to make sure you're the expert on your own show. That's a huge thing. If you only interview other people, they're viewed as the experts. You're the person that interviews experts. So that's the first switch that I would flip with your content. And I would start definitely mixing in solo episodes and even coaching episodes like what we're doing here. Like, this is great, expertly positioned content where I pull you on as somebody that listens to my show. I coach you for free. I coach you as if you're paying me. I don't hold anything back. I show off what I can do. And that's awesome because the audience, you're going to ask questions that have pain points that my audience has because you are out of the audience. And right. I get to show off what I do and people see me, oh, like, I'm ready to invest in coaching. This might be a guy that I want to work with. So I love that type of content for you. I would make that 2/3 of your content. So okay. 2/3 of your content is you are the expert. 1/3, we can still do strategic interviews. And honestly, you started off like all of us start off on our podcasting journey. We kind of imitate what we listen to. And a lot of people listen to interview-based shows. So that's what we do, interview-based shows. That's how I started too. But when I got serious about monetizing with selling my own things, I realized that, I need to show off a little bit. So I definitely recommend that with you. But with that 1/3 of your content being interviews, I want you to kind of gatekeep that spot a little bit. And you don't let just anybody that sends you an email asking to be on the show on that interview slot. Like, you really need it to be, I want you to ask what's in it for Jim every single time. Like, what is in it for you? And if that's somebody you really look up to and you just want to spend time with them, that's what's in it for you. If it is somebody that could be a great affiliate partner, that's what's in it for you. If that's somebody that you want to be on their podcast and you want to invite them onto your show first to make friends and see what happens, that's what's in it for you. And they always have to check the box of delivering great content for your audience. Like, that's a given. But I want that next level for you, because we all get blasted with those marketing emails of all these people pitching their guests. And I literally have put probably 12 of those in my spam box already today, where I'm just like, no. I mean, it's just constant. So, yeah. So any questions on just that 2/3, 1/3 split?
No, I don't know if I have a question is with the branding I've got for the podcast now. I don't know how that's going to to make that into that from where I've basically built into with the last 6 months. How am I going to build out of that? Like, would I need to rebrand the show?
Okay. Well, let's kind of work towards that, because I've got some definite suggestions with that. I think a rebrand would be helpful for several things. But I mean, I think you're overthinking this just a little bit, because if it's something that, like, if you were doing, if you're doing 1,000 downloads an episode, 5,000 downloads an episode, 10,000 downloads an episode, then we would have to think about these sorts of conversations. If you're doing south of 1,000 downloads an episode or south of 100 downloads an episode, you can pivot quick. I mean, you could change your show on a dime, and it's not a big deal. And that's when you want to pivot quickly, before you have the big numbers. Then it becomes a pain in the butt where you're dealing with, like, oh, this audience, I have to explain it to all these people and all this stuff. So now's the time to take action before. So I think pivoting could really help reach those bigger numbers. So that's the whole thing. Now, maybe you do an episode or you send out an email and go, hey, exciting news, I'm going to start dropping some solo episodes. Same, topics, same type of content, but I'm really eager to share my personal perspective. There's going to be shorter, snackable episodes, bite-sized 10-minute episodes, 15-minute episodes, something that they can consume, and then maybe put the idea out there. Hey, I'm also thinking about doing these coaching episodes where I invite listeners onto the show and I coach you based off of faith-based entrepreneurship or whatever topic you want to, like a faith-based business audit or whatever, like you could do what we're doing here on your show and float that idea out there. So that way you're alerting your listeners that you have and kind of making them a part of the process. So I think that's all really you need to do. A little social media. Hey, this is or new content. It's not a new show and it's not gonna be totally new topics. I don't think. It's just now you're talking, instead of guests most of the time. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes. I mean, it's really common for podcasters to get in their head about this, by the way. Like, it's totally normal to think and have these concerns and questions like, we work so hard for all these listeners, right? And then it's like, even if you have 47 listeners, you don't want to lose any of them, because that's,
I don't want to lose one.
Exactly. So I totally get where you're at. 100.
Yeah, you know how hard it took to make those 47, man.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to a guy that got basically 0 downloads for the first 3 years of just grinding it out. And I mean, it was brutal. So anytime my numbers went down, I'm like, oh my God, I'm only getting 47 now. I've gotten down 43 this month. This is terrible. So let's talk about one major glaring issue that I see with the brand. And that is, I pulled up, all right, let's search Grace in the Grind. There's like 6 or 7 shows with the exact same name. That's a huge problem. So this is a big deal. So I don't want anybody going to a different version. Like, if you're out there promoting this on social media, if you're on someone else's podcast, hey, go, a lot of times I just tell people, hey, go search Podcasting Business School wherever you enjoy your podcast audio. And if you do that, I mean, there are 3 exact matches and 4 to 5 that are just like
similar.
Grace and the Grind. It's like really Grace Grind and something else. Like, it's really multiple very similar names. So I think a rebrand and a pivot would help a ton just with that. So we're not,
so then the question, I guess. Yeah. So the question then again, because I've noticed there's a couple, like when I started mine, I think those one came after me. So I'm going to just pivot just to get away. I don't have a ton of downloads. Like, monthly, I think I'm 400 to 500 at the moment, but but that's what I'm saying. So I came up with a name. A bunch of people copied my name. So so it's better that I just go ahead and pivot now.
Well, here's the good news. I've got what I call the perfect podcast naming formula, and there are 3 important boxes to check. Let's just use this as a test. Maybe that your question becomes irrelevant after we discuss this. So the first box we got to check is when I read the name, I need to know exactly what it's about.
Okay.
Second box, when I read the name, I need to know exactly who it's for. Third box, we got to check. I need to see at least 2 keywords that people are searching. When I read Grace in the Grind, I'm checking 0 boxes out of the 3. I don't know what it's about. I don't know who it's for, and there's 0 keywords in there. So I think we've got an opportunity. We don't need to worry about who it's for. Like, if you had trademarked it, that's the only way that you can get somebody that comes after you. If you have a trademark that you got that TM and then, you were there first, but that's we don't need to even have that conversation, because I think that we could do better with the names. I think you've got a unique niche of, entrepreneurship strategies in the faith-based spectrum. We've got some great keywords that we could leverage there, even if it was just like, so here's kind of the template that I like to use. The first word in the name of your show has the most power. So the first word in the name of my show is podcasting. That's my biggest search word. That's a huge deal. That is extremely helpful for SEO and organic discoverability. So the template is as follows. I want big keyword, and then we usually use the words like tips, strategies, conversations, and then the next blank that we fill in is what I call a keyword plus identifying term. So big keyword, tips for, keyword plus identifying term. An example would be entrepreneurship tips for Christian business owners. So big keyword, tips for Christian business owners is an identifying term plus another keyword. So that's a double power keyword, because we want to use a word that your ideal listener avatar uses to describe themselves. So my show isn't business school, it's podcasting business school. I could have called it business strategies for podcasters. Same deal. Like, it's who it's for. If I have a show about mental health, that's one thing. If I have a show called mental health tips for personal trainers or online marketing strategies for physicians. Like this is really, I know what it's about. I know who it's for. I got 2 to 3 keywords in there, and it's all within like a 5-word title. So that's the package that we're looking for. That I think, I'm telling you, I had somebody that I worked with that had kind of a random name, and we switched it to mental health for Christian women. And she went from less than 40 downloads an episode to 108,000 downloads in a year.
Oh,
So
wow.
and that's all we changed, was just the name and the art. That's all that we changed. That was what flipped the switch.
Okay.
So leveraging if would you say your audience is like when you talk faith-based, are we talking Christian primarily? Yes. Okay.
Primarily. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one of my rules. If you have a faith-based topic for a very specific faith, I really want the name of that faith in the name of the show, because that will help you tremendously, because religion is the largest podcast listening category, even higher than comedy, higher than true crime, higher than news, religion. So if you have a religion-based topic, oh my goodness, use the name of the religion in the title of the show. That's what got my clients so many downloads, by adding Christian for Christian women. Boom, rocket ship. So, online business tips for Christian men or Christian entrepreneurs. If we can get the word business and entrepreneur in there, I'm going to love that. Christian, like I want that jumble of keywords in there: business, entrepreneur, Christian. If you mainly focus on men or women, you could add that in there, or millennials or a certain age group or whatever. But I think that's the mix that if we could start, even, Christian versus faith-based, I would still lean towards Christian as the specific term, the more specific term. But I think that's kind of a mix that I would just kind of sit with and go, okay, here's some potential keywords. I think this is the mix that we need to look at. And that first word, make it count. Make sure a lot of podcasters get all this right, and then they put the word the blah, blah, blah show. We don't want the word the to be the first word listed, because that's the word that has the most power. And so the first word, entrepreneurship, business, or Christian, that would be a great start. That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And just kind of sit on that. This isn't a let's make a decision right now, but just kind of think of keywords, think of topics, even ask your audience, like, when you're looking for a show like mine, what do you search on Apple and Spotify? It's a great way to just create that Rolodex of keywords. And then we want to use those for episode titles. We want to use those in your podcast host description, social media, all those things. That'll help a ton. And you just let people know, hey, we're rebranding a little bit, dialing in. Again, same great content. I would kind of flip the switch on a rebrand and the coaching or the solo episodes all at the same time. Kind of like, let's rip the Band-Aid off, do a big announcement, almost like a relaunch party sort of a thing. And new naming, new branding, new colors, whatever. Do a giveaway, act like you just launched the show and make a big to-do of it. And then that way it all kind of happens all at once. That makes sense?
It does. That's great.
Okay. Now let's talk about making some money, because I think that when you get the organic discoverability piece working for you, now your ideal fit listeners / potential clients are finding you while you sleep. You don't have to come on someone else's podcast to scoop up audience. You don't have to do a Facebook ad to find them. You could do that, but your audience searches Christian-based businesses, and boom, your show pops up. Wow, this is for me. He's using language that I use to describe myself. I'm going to binge listen to Jim. Now they hear you coaching, and they're like, and we have a direct call to action to try out membership coaching, things like that. So from what do you have cooking right now from a monetization standpoint? You said you got a few offers kind of in the works.
Yeah, I got a few. So I'm a leadership development coach, and I'm also a DISC personality profile master trainer. So one of my offers is a DISC full DISC personality thing. It's 30 pages, gives you everything you need to know about you and a growth plan. And then there's a 1-hour coaching that goes with that.
Nice. Okay. So let's create a trail to that, a client conversion pathway, I like to call it. So along the client conversion pathway, the first stepping stone is what I call the free passive stepping stone. That's your podcast listener. That's the person that follows you on social media. They're passive and they're consuming the free stuff. We want to get them into a free active zone. So that could look like maybe you host a free workshop once a month. Like I do this myself. And now they're getting to interact with you in a small group where you have a topic-based workshop that's free. They're on your email list also, which is a nice bonus. And they're interacting with you. So that would be free passive to free active. You could do what we're doing here. This is an exact example. You have listened to my show before, free passive. Right. You opted in to do a podcast audit, free active. Now we're actually working together. I get to lay my virtual hands on you and go, here's what we need to do and fix, Jim. So this is free passive to free active. From there, some people will convert directly into being a client. Other people will need to be invited to like a discovery call or something like that, where maybe you do this workshop and you're like, hey, for anybody that is interested, like I would relate with your offer that you have with the disc profile and all that. That sounds awesome. I would do your workshop topic or your audit style episode topic like one step in front of that, to where if we solve this thing, the disc profile makes sense as a next step. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like a pain point assessment, or I don't know, like just that one simple step that like, okay, now we knocked over this domino. The next logical step is doing this disc assessment. It's normally priced this, but since you came on and did a blah, blah, blah audit with me, I'm going to knock 10% off, or you get a bonus thing that goes with it, like hook them up. And then now you've got somebody in that offer. And I think you can convert from a coaching style episode into that. You can convert from a weekly or a monthly workshop experience from that. You can, promote that on your show, even like, hey, as a podcast listener, normally this offer is this, and you can use the code whatever to get 10% off or the bonus package or whatever. So I like that as a simple funnel right into that coaching thing. Any questions on that?
No, that's beautiful. Thank you.
And just keep it simple, man, because we can do all sorts of stuff off the back edge of that. So let's say, next steps, and I don't think you need to build this right away, but a next step, just from my own experience, is you start doing these one-to-one coaching. You get people through the program, you're getting some results. We're collecting testimonials. That's a really important thing. And let's say you've got 10 or 15 graduates of your one-on-one program. Now you circle back around with them and go, hey, I'm thinking about creating this group cohort just for continued support. I've helped all of you. You've gone through my program. You've graduated the one-on-one program. And I'm looking for 10 people to kind of beta test this concept of monthly group support. And it's kind of like a group coaching membership model. Would you be interested? And you start doing some chats with them and get 10, 15 people in there on a month-to-month basis. They're paying that recurring revenue stream now, and keep a simple support-based cohort, group coaching system going. I think that would be the next level, because I like people making recurring revenue. That's an important thing, especially if you're graduating people out of your one-on-one. You've got a next logical step of, oh, wow, this is the cohort that you need to go into. This is the membership model. This is where you're going to get continued support. And it's at an even more cost-effective price because we're doing group coaching instead of one-on-one. So that would be an offer I could see you developing. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And then honestly, I would just kind of keep it like that. I mean, you could make six figures just doing that. And we don't need to overcomplicate. An issue that I see with a lot of entrepreneurs in the creative space, not in the podcasting space, is we're like, all right, seems like all these people making money also have an online course. So I need to create that. And also they're doing mastermind. So I need to create that because that's how it's done. And you don't have to do that at all. I like taking off and letting it transform into another thing that makes a whole lot of sense, because you're going to have people graduate this one-on-one coaching and they're like, what next, coach? Like, what's you literally have people asking you, what's the next thing? And you're like, oh, I don't have anything right now, but
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love that you put that on the back end, because I was sitting here and when I created my model, I'm like, all right, well, let's just start a group, because that seems like just get a bunch of people in a low ticket group. And I'm like, so you putting it on the back end makes so much more sense, because I've already got a group of people who've already got a bunch of wins who are now just looking to continually win. So that makes so much more sense. Yeah.
And it's easier, man. And like you said, they have already paid you. So that's checkbox number one. It's easier to keep a current client than it is to go out and find a new client. So they've already paid you. We can up level them into an offer that's probably going to be less expensive than what they just paid you for. So that's great. and make it easy. Like, hey, maybe they get a 2-week trial once you get the groups going or something like that. Like give them some sort of a taste test thing if you think that you need to apply that. But yeah, like you've already got these active people that want to continue the results, and then more testimonials, more momentum. Now, one thing to consider, an evolution of your one-on-one offer is, so with that, are you just doing like Zoom chats and things like that? Like what does that involve as far as the deliverables? When you work with somebody one-on-one, what does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah. So we do just a regular coaching. It'll be, there are some resources that go with it. Like with the disc, you will get the 30-page thing, and then we'll
Yep.
talk about it, and I'll make notes and send those notes to you. But then it's usually, if you do the one-on-one consulting, the one-off, it's a Zoom call. If you do the weekly, then we're going to have the Zoom call or whatever platform we use. And then I may add like WhatsApp as like a quick voice memo
Like it.
thing. Yeah, just like a quick, if you have like a quick question and it just can't wait, shoot me a memo and we'll go back and forth on that.
Okay. So as you do that, I want you to make some mental notes, because this is the exact evolution that I did with my podcasting business school brand. Started with the one-to-one, just consulting format like you just did, create a membership on the back edge. But then I was like, oh, in this one-to-one, I feel like my time would be better served if I could individualize my suggestions more. So that's when I started creating videos, and I created a course that basically answered all the questions I'm having to answer a million times for everybody. So instead of spending time answering the same questions for everybody, I can go, hey, Jim, watch the first 3 videos before our first coaching session. That way, that takes care of all the mundane. I got to teach everybody this stuff. And then when we meet up, I'm like, all right, Jim, now that you understand those concepts, let's make it specific to you. So every time I meet with somebody, it's me teaching them how to apply what they just learned specifically to their situation, instead of just me teaching them that concept in general. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
just make notes, because you'll be like, all right, if I have to teach this concept one more time, I'm going to puke in my mouth. Like you'll get that feeling. You're like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm going to record a video of this. And then all of a sudden you get 5 or 10 videos, and all of a sudden you've got an online course. But just piece that together piece by piece. And those are assets. That could be a lead magnet. That could be a mini course offer. That could be its own little thing. I'm getting ready to record some content. This is very top of mind about just like blowing up your offer components and making a list of all these things, because they could each individually be an offer. For example, in my online business academy for podcasters, one of the offer components is my Friday office hours access. They can pop in and we can work on whatever. I'm in there for an hour, and you can pop in and we just work on whatever. That could be its own offer. Just the Friday office hours access. Like, how many people out there listening would like to have access to me on a Friday, and I charge you whatever per month to maintain Friday office hours access, and you can just pop in and we can work on whatever. I mean, that could be its own offer. The WhatsApp Q&A, that could be its own offer. You know, I do that with Voxer, where people can, they're in a group chat on Voxer, they can blast questions and I answer them within 24 hours. That could be its own offer, but those components can be put together. Maybe I take the Voxer access and the Friday office hours, and that's an offer, or those are bonuses to these other offers. So blowing up your components of offers and looking at how they kind of fit together in different ways or stand alone. I think when people do that, they realize they don't need to create a new thing. They've already got all the right stuff, and it's just kind of finding the right components that your audience really loves. So something to kind of just keep top of mind. Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I'd sign up for the drop in on Fridays. I sure would.
See, and your listeners will do the same. Like, I think, first things first, I want to give you kudos because you're giving your audience access to you. That works as a podcaster. Even if people have listened to 3 of your episodes, all of a sudden you're their dude. Like you're like the dude in the earbuds, and and here's how the independent podcasters like you and I win compared to the big brand people like Amy Porterfield, big business brand, big, Alex Hormozy, big business brand. You got to pay tens of thousands, if not $50,000, $100,000 to get one-on-one access to those people.
Right.
You and I win because they can pay $2,500, $1,000 and get access to the person that's in their earbuds every single week. That's our advantage. We can do that. and that's meaningful to us. To me, it's like if I can crank out consistent 10K months every single month, I'm super happy. I'm working 3 days, maybe 4 days a week. That's great. And if it's 20K, awesome, but that's just icing on the cake. So you giving your listeners direct access to you, whether it's in group coaching or one-on-one format, I think that's a smart move early on. People, the big marketing gurus will ring the podcasting bell of shame at me going, that's unscalable. But I'm like, if we aren't making any dang money, we're scaling $0 right now. It's not, we got to make money first and then we're going to scale on second. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. No, I told my daughter that yesterday because she just got a job and I was like, listen, this money's better than no money. And that's, absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. So I think monetization wise, I love what you're doing with the one-on coaching consulting. Let that evolve into group cohorts / memberships, and keep in mind on the, with the one-on-one, eventually develop video type assets. And now we've got a hybrid course plus coaching offer. That's called a signature offer or a flagship offer that now is more expensive because now we've got, there's a 20 video course along with 5 coaching sessions with Coach Jim at the same time. Like now that's a up-leveled resource that we can charge more for. And that's where, I try to get my clients in that, I try to get everybody in that $1,500 to $3,000. Like we need something in that zone. I can get anybody in there, whether they're in, health, fitness, personal growth, or make money, save money. That's a little bit easier when you can help somebody make $5,000. They'll pay $2,500. That makes sense. Return on investment.
Yeah.
But I want you in that zone pricing wise, because it's so much easier to make meaningful income once we do that. So I think we got the recipe to get you there, Jim. How you feeling about all this?
I feel great. Now I got
all right.
Workshop some names.
Yeah. And with that, don't stress out about it. We're not in a race. You're at where you're at. Let's find something that I want the cross section of what you feel really good about, represents you, topics, it's meaningful to you, but also if we could check those 3 boxes, you'll be off and running, man. I think it'll be a game changer for you. Really.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. I want you to take the mic, Jim, and shout out whatever you want to shout out, man. Your website, social media, whatever you got, go for it.
Well, I appreciate it. First and foremost, thanks for all of this. This is great, and I appreciate you. And as for me, you can find me on social media at Lead with Jim. I do have www.leadwithjim.com. You can find some, a disc free guide there or access to my podcast through that link. I spend most of my time on YouTube and Facebook, but you can also find me on TikTok as well. Lead with Jim.
All right, Pod Pals, that is it for this month's live coaching episode. I love doing these live coaching episodes. Obviously, I teach this within the content. It's great expert positioning. If you have never tried a live coaching episode, I really, really encourage you to try it. Show off what you do. Show off how you can think on your feet and coach somebody, and give your listener the experience of what it's like to actually work with you. So with that, Pod Pals, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode. Hey there, good looking. Just a quick reminder to hit that link in the show notes and get signed up for my free Podcasting Business School newsletter. I'm going to send you a fresh, hot newsletter every single Thursday with some of my best podcast launch, growth, and monetization strategies. Hit that link in the show notes and keep your eyes on your inbox.